So picture this. You pull up your calendar and it's full of colorful little rectangles telling you that for the foreseeable future, your time is booked. There's your job, and then the second job you picked up because you're not making enough at your first job to afford your life, plus you signed up for a triathlon so you need to train, and your best friend convinced you to do a cooking class with her, and you committed to volunteering at the Humane Society on weekends. And of course, somewhere in there you also need to find time to do the little things like sleep, eat, and pet your dog. It's all good, important stuff, and you want to do it all. But you find yourself starting to feel a little tired and a little anxious just looking at the calendar. So there's this little voice in the back of your head asking, can you keep this up? Hi, I'm Miriam Nielsen, and this is Study Hall Sustainability. In the field of sustainability, can we keep this up is an important question. But while you're probably mostly thinking about whether you can keep all your commitments and meet everyone's expectations without getting sick or burning out, the people studying sustainability take a much more global view. Like, can the planet keep all its commitments and meet everyone's expectations without getting sick or burning out? And that's not a simple question. Answering it means looking at all kinds of different systems, ourselves, our industries, our governments, our communities, to figure out what our choices mean, not just for our present, but for our future too. So when we study the field of sustainability, we're trying to find ways to achieve the concept of sustainability. And that's the process of finding a healthy balance between intersecting environmental, social, and economic systems with policies, practices, and preferences. The overall goal is to meet the needs we have now without compromising on what we'll need in the future, all while improving the well-being of individuals and communities and looking after Earth's life-supporting systems. In other words, sustainability isn't just about recycling or reducing carbon emissions to support the environment. It's about transforming our whole world into something that's more healthy, more just, and more resilient. And none of this is brand new. For tens of thousands of years, lots of indigenous societies have lived in ways that preserve their environments and resources, ways they could keep up for, well, tens of thousands of years. And we'll talk more about those societies and their methods throughout the course. But the problem is that for a lot of years, a lot of people have been doing pretty much the exact opposite of those indigenous societies, and that reached a tipping point during the 18th century, around the same time as the European Industrial Revolution. That's when coal and steam-powered machinery changed the game for society. Europe started shifting its focus from agriculture towards cities, where the steam engines and light bulbs and spinning jennies were. And those new industrial tools did people a lot of good. Less backbreaking farm labor, cheaper necessities like food, tools, and clothes, and a higher standard of living for a lot of people. But those advancements had some drawbacks too. Pretty soon, cities like Manchester and London got crowded and polluted, worker safety and fair wages took a backseat to production quantity and speed. Those new factories started using resources faster than nature could replace them, and all their exhaust and chemical waste began to degrade the environment. So while that level of industry had a lot of benefits, it proved to be unsustainable. When we live in ways that aren't sustainable, like producing and consuming at high rates that can't be maintained, we call that unsustainable. And unfortunately, we didn't leave unsustainable ways behind with the powdered wigs and whalebone corsets of the 18th century. Today, it's more relevant than ever. For tens of thousands of years, humans have been shaping the world to meet our needs. But since the Industrial Revolution, humans have become a huge influence on our global climate and environment. So huge that some researchers think we're living in a whole new geological epoch. They call it the Anthropocene, after the Greek word for human, because it's the first one where humans, rather than natural systems, are the dominant force working on the environment. And that human impact has led to biodiversity loss, damage to ecosystems and natural landscapes, and of course, the ever-present threat of climate change. With extreme weather, food and water shortages, damage from chemical waste, and more, we're already seeing the consequences of being unsustainable. And the longer we wait to respond, the worse it will get, and the less we'll be able to do to fix it. But it's not as simple as plant a tree, save a life, or giving corporations a big tax credit for putting solar panels on their roofs. Addressing the consequences of human actions involves a bunch of fields, and I don't just mean the ones full of grass and wildflowers. Here's an example. In 1999, the Edwards Dam near Augusta, Maine was removed from the Kennebec River. Removing a dam was unheard of, but the existence of the dam basically ruined the river. The fish population all but disappeared, and the water flow and water quality declined as paper mills and towns dumped their waste into it. So environmental groups formed a coalition and started advocating to remove the dam to revitalize not only the river, but also the city of Augusta. To do that, a lot of people had to get on board. First, the coalition had to convince the energy agency not to renew its contract with the company running the dam. They also had to get the support of Maine's governor and the general public, and get funding for the project. The coalition produced 7,000 pages of information on the impacts of the dam and showed that the ecological benefits outweighed the economic impact of removing the dam. The dam only produced 0.1% of Maine's electricity, didn't employ many people, and was unsafe. Plus, removing the dam could also revitalize the town, which would have a thriving, healthy river running through it. After years of effort, the dam was removed, and the impact was wide-reaching. Fish quickly returned to the river, as did birds, insects, and other wildlife. Water quality also improved, and Augusta built parks and trails along the river. I've even done a triathlon in that river now, which would never have happened when I was a kid. And then other cities followed suit. Since Edwards, more than 1,000 dams have been removed from rivers across the US. This example shows a few important themes. First, the people of Augusta considered interconnected human and environmental systems. They thought about how human actions and their consequences are interconnected with the health of the natural world, and vice versa. They also considered intra- and intergenerational justice. Removing the dam impacted a lot of people, and the coalition considered past, present, and future as they made their proposals. And finally, they sought out some diverse perspectives, looking at the ecological and economic impact not just in Augusta, but all along the river. So beside cutting across more fields than a possessed lawnmower, sustainability also thinks about all kinds of different people, ecosystems, spaces, and timeframes. It exists at the intersection of a lot of different systems, trying to find solutions that keep everyone's best interests at heart. So that's the idea, but what do we actually do about it? With so many competing interests, it can be hard to think of actionable, sustainable solutions to the problems our communities face. And actionable is an important word here. Sustainability isn't about playing whack-a-mole with the most urgent problems. We also want to advance justice, build more resilient and vibrant communities, and pave the way toward prosperous and responsible futures. And doing all those things means we have to look at our choices in different contexts, from the small and local to the big and global. Like, one of my favorite things to do is go to the movies, but one of my other favorite things to do is agonize about whether my hobbies are sustainable or not. Can I feel good about going to see the newest blockbuster heist movie, or is feeding the industrial giant of Hollywood my $17 ticket gonna do more harm than good? There's a lot to consider before I can answer. First, I have to think about my personal behaviors and communities, how I and people like me can engage with sustainability in our everyday lives. Well, to reduce carbon dioxide emissions, I can walk or take the subway to the movie theater instead of taking a cab, which no one would do anyway, because why would you add a $30 cab fare to your already expensive movie outing? I could also sneak in my refillable water bottle and all of its cool stickers. That way, when I realize I'm thirsty halfway through the movie, I don't have to buy plastic and produce waste. And I can feel superior to everyone standing in line to buy a $5 bottle of water. But what about the companies making the movies I watch? That brings us to professional practices and industries, or how different sectors, companies, and livelihoods relate to sustainability. Take bigger films, specifically ones with budgets of at least $70 million, which includes Ocean's 8, 11, 12, and 13. On average, their carbon footprint for a week of filming is about 230 metric tons of carbon dioxide, which is more than what the average US household emits over 4 years. Those numbers could be lowered by using more energy-efficient equipment, like using battery-powered generators to cut down on the use of diesel fuel, or by reusing and repurposing props and set materials. Finally, I don't like to go without my popcorn, even though that's another $15, which probably came from the US. And that means it was grown by someone following US agricultural policies and any conservation programs that come with that. This touches on our third level, policies and global decision-making, or how international strategies and the worldwide issues they address can advance sustainability. If I want future humans to enjoy going to the movies, isolated actions at just one of these levels would only be a piece of the puzzle in making my hobby sustainable. I can't just buy a Hydro Flask and call it a day. And if you don't have a water bottle in 2024, you are a baby, like literally born yesterday kind of baby. Instead, we need integrated solutions that span different contexts and work together in harmony. Think of it like a heist movie, when all the characters come together and use their special skills to pull off the greatest casino robbery of all time. If we just set in the lockpicking guy, well then, who would knock out the guards, or drive the getaway car? Where is Brad Pitt and all his different snacks? Without a team effort, the whole thing falls apart. As we pursue sustainability, it's important to think not just about what to do and why, but also how we'll do it. Much like in a heist movie, actually. For example, one study found that by the end of this century, the 210,000 glaciers on Earth will shrink to between half and 3/4 of their current size. As this happens, it'll increase the risk of flooding and affect food and water security in many mountain communities, which get their water from glacial meltwater. So that's what the problem is and why we care about it. As for how we'll lessen the damage, well, glaciers are vulnerable to climate change, so we'll need robust laws to reduce emissions to actually protect glaciers. Whew. Maybe sustainability is a little like playing whack-a-mole, at least in the sense that when you answer one question, another one pops up behind you. And it can feel overwhelming, but sustainability is also about tapping into your humanity and empathy. Without those, we might miss the forest for the trees. And well, we want to save the forest and the trees. We're talking about the overlapping of massive systems, environmental, social, and economic, and not just in theory. We want to figure out how to take action and make real change. Doing that and doing it well is a huge task, but it's a task we have to do. If you're enjoying this series and are interested in taking the full Study Hall Sustainability course and earning college credit from ASU, check out gostudyhall.com or click on the button to learn more. And if you want to help us out, give this video a like, comment your favorite heist movie, and smash that subscribe button. Thanks for watching. See you next time.